The Jenkins family arrived at the secluded cabin just before sundown. The late autumn sun painted the forest in hues of orange and crimson, the skeletal branches swaying gently in the cool breeze. The cabin, nestled deep in the heart of the woods, was their escape, a place to unplug from the world. James and Linda Jenkins had been looking forward to this trip for months, hoping the quiet would strengthen their strained relationship and give their 2 children, Ethan and Mia, a much-needed break from their hectic schedules. Their dog, Max, a spirited golden retriever, bounded out of the SUV and immediately began sniffing the unfamiliar terrain, his tail wagging furiously. By the time the fire was crackling in the stone hearth, the family had settled in. The interior of the cabin was rustic but cozy, with thick wooden beams and walls adorned with faded photographs of hunters and landscapes long forgotten. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, and darkness settled over the woods like a heavy blanket. The first sound came just after midnight. Linda was the first to hear it, a faint, high-pitched whine, almost like a kettle boiling. She stirred in bed, glancing over at James, who was snoring softly. The sound grew louder, more insistent, until it was punctuated by a sudden sharp click-clack that seemed to echo through the trees. Downstairs, Max growled low in his throat. Linda nudged James awake. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" he mumbled, still half asleep. The click-clack came again, this time accompanied by a scraping noise, like nails being dragged across wood. James sat up. "What the hell is that?" They both froze, as Max let out a series of sharp barks before falling silent. The next morning, Max was gone. Ethan and Mia had searched every inch of the cabin and the surrounding woods, calling for him until their voices were hoarse. But there was no trace of the dog, not even paw prints in the damp earth around the cabin. James and Linda exchanged worried glances, but tried to reassure the kids. "Maybe he just wandered off and will come back," James said, though his voice lacked conviction. The day passed uneventfully, but as dusk approached, an uneasy tension settled over the family. The sounds began again just after dark, louder this time, and closer. It started with a faint humming, low and resonant, that seemed to vibrate through the walls of the cabin. Then came the click-clack and scraping noises, now unmistakably coming from the porch. Ethan peeked out the window and gasped. "Dad, there's something out there." James grabbed a flashlight and cautiously opened the door, shining the beam into the inky blackness. The forest beyond the porch was still, the trees casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. But just as he was about to close the door, he caught a glimpse of movement, something tall and impossibly thin, with elongated limbs and glowing lidless eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. James slammed the door shut and bolted it. "Everyone upstairs, now!" The next few nights were a nightmare. The creatures, there were more than one as they soon discovered, circled the cabin relentlessly. Their movements were swift and erratic, their alien forms barely visible in the darkness. They never attacked directly, but seemed to be testing the family's defenses, probing for weaknesses. James and Ethan barricaded the windows and doors with furniture while Linda and Mia kept watch. The family barely slept, jumping at every sound and shadow. The creatures grew bolder with each passing night, their glowing eyes often peering through the cracks in the wooden slats. On the 4th night, they broke through. A window shattered in the living room, and one of the creatures slithered inside, its body bending unnaturally as it moved. Linda screamed as the thing lunged at her, its elongated fingers tipped with razor-sharp claws. James fired the hunting rifle he'd found in the cabin, the shot echoing through the room. The creature let out a high-pitched screech and collapsed, its black blood oozing onto the floor. But more were coming. By the 7th night, the Jenkins family was running out of options. They were down to their last few bullets, and the creatures showed no signs of giving up. The cabin was in ruins, its walls clawed and splintered, its windows gaping holes. Just when all hope seemed lost, the sky lit up with blinding white light. A deafening roar filled the air as a helicopter descended, its searchlight illuminating the cabin and the creatures surrounding it. A tactical strike team in black uniforms stormed the clearing, their weapons firing bursts of bright blue energy. The creatures screeched and writhed as the beams hit them, their bodies disintegrating into ash. One of the soldiers, his face obscured by a helmet, approached the family. "You're safe now," he said, his voice muffled but firm. Linda collapsed into James's arms, sobbing with relief. The government agents refused to answer questions, swiftly evacuating the family to a secure location. As they flew away from the cabin, Ethan glanced out the helicopter window and saw the forest below, bathed in an eerie, unnatural glow. Though the Jenkins family survived, they would never forget the horrors they faced in the woods, and they would never know the full truth about the creatures that hunted them or the secret war waged in the shadows to keep such terrors at bay.